My name is Fugazi and I'm also a guy, and this is my review for Dragonballz Kakarot. Before I get into it, I want you guys to like and subscribe. Comment below, let me know what you thought of the game. How was your experience? This, that. You know, I read all the comments, I'll comment back. It's just interesting to see different viewpoints. But yeah, do that. Also, I want to say that this is all just opinion based, so if you don't get upset because I didn't like it the way you did, or, you know, certain things, this is all just opinion. If you like the game, that's awesome. If you didn't, that sucks. You know, it's just one of those things. Everyone's different. Before I get into it, though, I'm going to be using early game footage. I don't really want to spoil, the great cutscenes, the great moments of this game, just because, you know, we all know the story, so you go in. For me personally, I wanted to see, what they did with the cutscenes, so I don't really want to spoil that. So I'm going to use Saiyan Saga Early Namek. You know, I don't want to ruin it for you guys, because that's not cool. Alright, so let's get into it. Alright, so Dragonballz Kakarot. This one was kind of mixed for me. You're either going to like it or you're going to hate it. It's not for everybody. I'm just going to start off by saying that. So go in there. If you're going to get this game, go in with an open mind. Hey, you know, I don't know if this is going to be for me. Because there's some things that this game does right, and it's it looks awesome. But then there's a lot of it isn't very good, you know? There's a lot of things that they don't do well. So it's one step forward, kind of 3 steps back. So the presentation of Kakarot, I would say there's 3 different kinds of cutscenes. The first cutscene would be the holy shit, this is beautiful cutscenes. Those are amazing. Then the second one would be the Xbox 360 last gen cutscenes, which, you know, it's just all right. And then there's the PS2 cutscenes where you're what the fuck happened? Why would you guys let this go on? What's going on? This is 2020. I don't know. So we'll talk about those. So the really good cutscenes in this game, they are actually breathtaking. The animation on them, the presentation, the polish, beautiful. They're probably one of the best anime cutscenes I've ever seen in a game. They look amazing, but the only problem is I feel there's not enough of them. I wish they would come off more often during the game, but they're basically saved for key moments that happen in the anime, like Goku versus Frieza, Cell versus Gohan, all that kind of thing. So you get those big moments, and they'll shoot they'll do those cutscenes, and they look amazing, and they really get you they get you into the game. You you get that feeling holy shit, this looks way better than the anime, but they just don't happen enough, and it sucks that they just didn't take more time to do more of these cutscenes for the overall game. All right, so the second kinds of cutscenes, these ones happen the majority of the game. I hate to say this, but they're very last gen looking. They don't look great. There's very, very unpolished. The character models are kind of janky at times. And it's just why did they do this? You know, why did they choose this? For a game that came out in 2020, it doesn't look like a 2020 game. It looks very last gen most of the time. And it's kind of sad because, you know, CC2, they do really good cutscenes, as you'll see in the Naruto games and the, you know, Kakarot, but it's just so lackluster when you actually get into the meat of the game. Kind of just takes you out of it because, you know, you'll get a really amazing cutscene and then they'll throw you back into the garbage animation, the Xbox 360 gen. It's just, I don't know why they decided to go with this design choice. It really takes you out of it. All right, now we have the third kind of cutscenes, and oh my god, they look so shit. The diarrhea cutscenes, they look like a PlayStation 2 game, and I have no idea why or how this got through. They let this happen. It looks so bad. It literally looks like Budokai 2, and I can't believe that in a 2020 game that we have cutscenes like this. This game is beautiful at times, but it's so inconsistent, and I hate it. And it really takes you out of it when you get a good moment, and you're oh my god, it looks fucking great. And then you get the moments where you're what the hell is going on here? This looks like garbage. So it's just very, very inconsistent kind of game presentation-wise. But overall, I think they could have done better with the animations and stuff. So all cutscenes aside, the overall presentation of the game, visuals during gameplay, it looks pretty good. In combat, it's very flashy. There's cool lights and effects going on, and it looks really beautiful when you use special moves. When you charge up, your opponent charges up too, and they get that weird red orb, aura, super armor. They use their special attacks, their moves, their boss battle animations. It looks really, really good during gameplay. Also, in the open world part of it, everything looks pretty nice too. It's cool to see how Kami House looks in an 3D Dragon Ball game. They did a good job with that. There's a few spots here and there you'll notice some really low quality textures, but besides that, I enjoy how this game looks gameplay wise. All right, so now the overall gameplay itself, All right, so this is where you're gonna either love it or hate it. The combat, I don't know, to me feels kind of stale. I wanted to like it. I tried to give it a chance, you know, keep playing through the game. Maybe it'll change, but it's very, very one button mashy. You get some cool like special moves on the side, but it's just every fight starts to kind of feel the same. You know, you beat the guy up. He does the red power up. He has super armor. You back off, wait for him to do his attack, and then you dodge to the left. And it's just very repetitive after a while. I kind of wish they did a little bit more. Maybe added some like heavy attack combos in there and stuff. But it just feels kind of very, very lackluster. And it kind of hurts me to say this because I really wanted to like it. I really did. But if they could have like, man, if they could have just did like a little more with the combat, it would have been awesome. Movement is very good though. I do enjoy the movement in the actual fights. You feel like very Dragon Ball like. You're just, you know, dashing here and there, charging to your opponent. And that's fucking awesome. They have this cool feature where you kind of, I can't remember, Surge, I think it's called. It's like your Surge attack where you power up and your character does like like in the show, like you power up and that looks fucking awesome. You get some damage boosts out of it and you can like chain together your special attacks. I loved all that. That was cool. So let's talk about boss fights in Kakarot. This is where the game actually really shines the most. These are my favorite moments in the game were the boss fights. Each boss has their own kind of like special animation or like attack where you got to like dodge it. And they all look beautiful. Like they're very, very well done. Yeah, and they like bring so much life to these fights because they kind of make you feel like insignificant, like very like weak compared to these guys because they're throwing all these crazy moves at you and you got to dodge them. And these guys are kind of tanky and they're unique. Each character has like their own kind of like boss fight, you know, animation thing that they do. The only thing I don't like though is they all kind of play similar, not like the animations itself, but like the overall fighting mechanic of the game kind of, you know, holds this back, holds the boss fights back, because it's all the same. It's hit him, turns red, now he has super armor, back the fuck off, and then, you know, rinse and repeat. I don't like that about that. So I feel like they kind of drop the ball. You know, if the gameplay doesn't work like that well, like the overall combat, then, you know, it kind of holds everything else back. But with that being said, I still really enjoyed the boss fights. They were cool to watch. They were cool to look at. They were cool to even, like, you know, be involved in. So I do give Kakarot props for the boss fights in this game. Let's talk about flying. Flying fucking sucks. This is easily one of the worst parts about the game. It's all janky and like the controls are fucking weird and it's ass. I hated every second of flying in the open world. Just not because of like the open world itself, but like mainly because the flying mechanics are really trash. They don't feel good. It's hard to fucking land and stuff, and I was just all over the place. Not a fan. Very janky. And then you have like this little like, oh, fly and collect these orbs. That's stupid. It just feels kind of cheap and lazy. You know, like, oh, you want power ups? Go fly around this fucking world and, you know, get power ups and get these orbs to upgrade. I don't know. I didn't like that at all. It was kind of lame. Also, what was kind of lame was the open world itself. You know, at first it's very nice to look at. It's cool to, you know, travel to all these areas in the anime that you saw and see them in a, you know, a 3D 2020 game. It was cool to see Kami House and all that. But then after more and more gameplay, you realize that it's just the world just feels empty. There's nothing to do. There's not much going on. It just feels like a very dead world. Don't get me wrong. Like, you can see old characters from like Dragon Ball or like, you know, side characters. You can fish. You can, you know, collect stuff. But overall, it's just not enough. You know, if you want to make an RPG game, you need to have your world be the basis, like the whole thing. Like, oh, open world, there's a lot to do, fun stuff. But Dragonballz Kakarot doesn't do that. It just plops you in this world. You got to go here, there, you know. It's just not enough. It's not enough for me. If you're going to make an RPG game, you got to have more. You got to have way more for the world. All right, so let's talk about the actual like RPG elements of this game. So for me personally, I think this is the worst part of Kakarot. If they didn't make it an RPG, I think this game would probably be a lot better. I just feel like the whole RPG side of this game is very tedious and annoying to get to. So you have like your, you know, classic side quests that are actually like easily the worst part of this game. They're unvoiced. They're all the same. They're boring. Go here, fight this, fight these filler robots for an hour and a half. And it's just very tedious. It's very, very boring. It really takes you out of the game. There's Chi-Chi can make you food before you fight. Like, you know, you go collect stuff. I never really did that because it was boring. And then they have this kind of like confusing like medal system where it kind of like buffs your characters. You get like different characters to their medals and it gives you buffs. I don't know. I kind of I didn't really use it too much. It was like, what the fuck's going on? Whatever. That's not like, you know, not a big deal breaker for me. But yeah, like the whole RPG side of it, like leveling up, you never really had to level up because the game kind of, you play the story and you just fucking crank. You crank through your levels and it doesn't really matter. So I'm very confused why they kind of made it an RPG, even though it didn't really have to be an RPG. But yeah, I feel like that's like the worst part of this game is the actual RPG side of it, because it doesn't work. I'm sorry, I don't care what anyone says. On paper, Dragon Ball Z game sounds good, like an RPG, but in execution, it doesn't work. I don't think it'll ever work. It's just not the right series for it, you know? Playing through the actual story with Goku in an RPG sense, there's just not enough. It just doesn't hit, you know? I feel like if they just didn't make this game an RPG, it would probably set better with me. But I don't know. I just think it doesn't work. It just doesn't work at all. One thing I really wish they kind of did, instead of fighting all these like generic filler robots or the generic Frieza soldiers, they could have used like those side quests or like those padding missions, filler missions. They could have used that for movie characters. We could have got some like Broly missions or like a Broly fight or Cooler when we went to Namek. Like that would have been awesome. That would have been a cool like way to like kind of throw some RPG into it, you know? Like maybe you could have made a decision like do this and you'll like remember in Budokai where like you would fly to like a different area of the map and like it's kind of like a decision, fly here or there. And if you like during the Frieza fight, so if you flew to like the normal path, you'd fight Frieza, but if you flew to the other one, you'd fight Cooler instead. And you have like this whole side thing where it's like Goku's like, who the hell are you? And he's like, oh, I'm Cooler, like fuck you. That would have been amazing and that would have been huge for this game. Stuff like that, you know, if you're gonna make it an RPG, give it some RPG life. Give some life to it, you know? Do stuff like that. Let us be able to change Goku's outfits. Maybe let us change his moves more, you know? Let us have fucking Gallic Gun with Goku. You know, give it more RPG. You know, it didn't have this game like didn't commit to the whole RPG aspect of, you know? It's like, oh, this game Dragon Ball Kakarot RPG, but it doesn't fully commit, and I feel like that's the problem with this game. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. All right, yeah, well, I think that's it for me. I want to end this off by saying, you know, this isn't a bad game at all. It's pretty average, maybe a little bit below average. I recommend it if it was on sale. Let's just say that. But, you know, I know it sounded like I shit on this game a lot, but that's just because I'm a hardcore fan. You know, I expect more out of this. But I have to say this, I do respect the fact that they tried. I love the fact that they tried. It didn't hit, but I love the fact that they were willing to take a risk. And you know what? I respect that. And, you know, they have a basis for something good here. You know, if they were to, you know, expand more on it, I think we could have a pretty good RPG, quotation, Dragon Ball game. You know, I respect it. I really do. When this game is good, it's good. But when it's, you know, most time it doesn't hit. Just because, like, lackluster animation, all this stuff, weird, janky controls, janky flying. But it's just, you know, overall, I think it's an alright experience, and I do recommend it if it's on sale. I bought it on Steam during a sale for, like, 19 bucks, and, you know, it was worth it for 20 bucks, I think. Maybe not full price, but, you know, it's still an alright game.